thank you so much for coming on to the Chats and Chapters podcast. I'm very excited to have you.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so happy to be here. So excited for the
Yeah.
conversation.
Yes. So I love to start off with a little bit of your background. Tell us the Sasha Preston origin story.
Yeah, absolutely. So I am based in Southern California and I write women's fiction crime capers that are designed to give women a sense of escape, a sense of adventure and joy, and also written to inspire you to be a little bit more bold and take a few more risks in your everyday life. So that's kind of where my inspiration comes from, and that's the type of works that I like to create.
Nice. I love that. Do you have a background in writing? Did you go to college for writing, or did you just pick this up and decide this was your path?
Yeah, so it's funny. I was obsessed with writing as a kid. I would sit down and I would fill pages with scribbles even before I knew how to write words. And I that passion continued once I was able to write. I wrote fiction constantly and it was my favorite part of every grade and every class. And kind of once I reached high school and college, I started to write a little bit more serious type of things. I wrote more nonfiction, I wrote professionally, and that stuff is still great and I love it. And I currently do it in my work, but I lost that creative fiction drive that I had as a kid. And I didn't realize that there was kind of this void, there was this emptiness in my life that I needed to fill with that creativity. So a few years ago, a friend of mine suggested, she's like, hey, we both like writing. Why don't we write short stories together? So she had this idea where every week we'd come up with a theme, we'd take turns, and we'd both write a short story on the topic. And then, after a week, we'd send them to each other. And it was so much fun seeing how different our stories were
Yeah.
on the same topic and how much they diverged and everything. And eventually my mom's a writer as well, so I started doing it with my mom very regularly for many months. And just getting that creative muscle moving again, I think
Yeah.
was the hardest part. And then once I had it going, I was like, this is something that I need in my life. This is something I have to continue. And a few of my friends suggested, hey, I'm joining this writing contest. Do you want to join with me? And I never actually did. I always thought, oh, that sounds great, but I don't know. But eventually, the more people that suggested it, I kind of took it as a sign. Like, I don't have to just write short stories. I can take this further. I can write a full length novel.
Yeah.
And so around that time, I started to write The Sweetest Getaway. And first, I was writing it in the mornings, and I was getting more and more excited the more I wrote and more passionate. And I'd have inspiration throughout the day that I wanted to include. I'd write myself little notes. And eventually, I started writing on my lunch breaks. So I'd go for walks and I'd be
Yeah.
typing on my phone. And then I'd be writing in the evenings, and it started to expand until writing was this thing that I couldn't get away from. I was so driven and excited to do it. And so it became a much larger part of my life. And so I'm very grateful to that friend that suggested the short stories because I feel like she really got everything started for me.
I love that. I think it's interesting, obviously, as we get older, being creative and playing and stuff isn't like as important because you have bills and you have corporate things and you have due dates and this, that, and the other. So I love that you were like, no, I have to do this. I need this in my life. And now you've turned it into your whole thing. That's exciting.
Exactly. Oh, thank you. And I also think, kind of along with what you're saying, I think as we get older, we put so much pressure on ourselves when it comes
Yeah.
to being creative. We're so worried about the outcome that sometimes that can stop us from even getting started. And I
Mm-hmm.
think letting that go and going back to that childhood sense of play and wonder without worrying about the outcome is so much
Yeah.
better for the creative process as much as you can tap
Yeah.
into it.
The outcome and or the like judgment
Yes.
from other people, not being perfect, the like your first story not being perfect the first time you wrote it, and like it's unrealistic, but I feel like now with social media and everything especially, it's once you get older, you feel like the judgment of others and you're like, oh, I don't want to. So,
Oh, totally. That
yeah.
stops people in their tracks too. It's
Mhm.
really unfortunate. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. But it didn't stop you.
It
And that
didn't have
is
to
the
stop
point.
you. Exactly. Exactly.
So, between your job, you said that you were writing in the mornings and then writing at lunch. So, how did you kind of balance your day job with your other responsibilities and writing? Were those the only times that you wrote, or did it kind of like bleed into other parts of the day as well?
Oh, totally. Yeah, it got to the point where I was writing in all of my spare time pretty much. I was writing on the weekends. I was fitting it in wherever I could. I think for me, having Google Docs on my phone was super
Yeah.
helpful because then you can write at any time, anywhere, anytime that you have a spare
Yeah.
moment. If you're out waiting for something, waiting in line and you've got 20 minutes of waiting in line, well, hey, now I can write. This is
Yeah.
convenient. I have my phone with me, it's charged, all of that. So I think just being aware of the fact that you want to write and you want to create is the first step. And then I think you'll find the time, you'll find those moments based on your schedule that you can slip it in and you can make it convenient for you.
Yeah, I agree. That's that seems to be the consensus. It's one of those like if you want to make it happen, you're going to make it happen. It's not that you like, magically have the time, you make the time for it.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
yeah, I love that. What is one surprising thing about yourself that isn't in your author bio?
Oh, that's a good question. So I have a very strong passion for women's economic empowerment that I've had since my early 20s. And I studied political science, and that was one of the focuses for me was women's empowerment. And my first work experience was doing microfinance in India, which are these small,
Fascinating.
yeah, it was amazing.
Nice.
Groups of women receive microloans and then they take turns using the money for their own business. And then in that group, everybody supports them, helps them deal with challenges, helps them figure out here's what you should do in your business, here's how you can repay that, we're going to support you. And you take turns so that everybody has that support and you're able to repay back the funds and escape poverty
Cool.
is the hope.
Yeah.
And yeah, so that's what I did in college for an internship, and so that kind of informs my work with the
Mhm.
themes of
Mhm.
women taking back their power financially, women supporting each other financially, and obviously all of the adventures and exciting hijinks that ensue from that. But that's kind of an area of passion for me that has informed my work.
I love that.
Thank you.
Would you say that your idea for women economics and everything is that the core idea or like the theme of the sweetest getaway? Like that was where the seed came from, or would you think it was something else?
I think that was definitely one of the seeds. I think there were a
Yeah.
few. At its core, what I really wanted to do was give women the chance to feel joy and adventure and excitement. I think that those are some of the most compelling emotions that you can feel, some of the most exciting reasons to be alive. And people don't always necessarily give themselves permission to feel that way and to experience
Yeah.
those things. So I wanted to give people the outlet to feel that adventure and that escape and that playfulness. And then also, like I mentioned before, just giving people the inspiration to try something new, get outside of their comfort zone, take those risks and be more bold in their everyday life. And those kind of all come together, that along with the theme of, financial butt kicking
Yeah.
kind of all comes together.
Because they're stealing some money.
Yes, absolutely.
So, how did you develop your main characters? Are they based on people in your life or are they entirely made up?
I think I get inspiration, pieces of inspiration that kind of all come together, and there's not like a particular person that informed either one of them. But I really wanted to show with the dynamic between their two characters, just how much you can gain from a friendship, especially a friendship where the person is so different from you and they push you to grow and they push you to do new things in ways that you wouldn't normally do on your own. So
Yeah.
I definitely wanted to highlight that. And then there is a lot of entrepreneurship in the book, and I have a lot of friends who are women entrepreneurs who are just so creative and awesome and innovative and
Hmm.
just out there being bold and kicking butt. And so I wanted
Yeah.
to bring that inspiration from them as well into some of the characters, because all of them are entrepreneurial. Even Jennifer, who doesn't yet have
Yeah.
her own business, is driven and really wants to have one of her own one day. So that's kind of a theme that I brought in as well.
Yeah. I love that.
Thank you.
Especially like having friends that are so different from you. Because I do, I mean, obviously I have commonalities with my friends. I think you have commonalities with, a lot of people, but it's also very fun and I think productive as the growth aspect in life is to have friends that aren't exactly like you and like you can have those deep conversations and get someone else's perspective. So I love that you have so many things wrapped into this book. It's so good.
Thank you so much.
What was the most unexpected twist or change that happened during the writing process?
Ooh, that is a great question. I mean, I this was my first book, so it evolved so much over the course of writing it, and I actually didn't really know where I was going most of the time. I just kind of let it happen organically, which meant that I wrote probably 3 books. I
Right.
had to
Yeah.
remove so much because a lot of it wasn't needed. A lot of times I was including things that were interesting but didn't necessarily contribute to the plot. And
Yeah.
so I had to really, really cut back and cut a lot of things out. One side story that I think that I'm going to use in the future, almost for sure I'm going to use as another kind of prequel to The Sweetest Getaway. I wrote a really long piece, probably 70 to 80 pages, as a part of the
Oh my
book
goodness.
about Nari's mom, Hannah, who joins the heist crew, kind of her backstory. Since she has a criminal past, I go
Yeah.
into, what got that started during her childhood in South Korea, and when she immigrated to the US, what did she have to do to survive and make a living, and how that kind of evolved and how it impacted the family, how they moved, the adventures and
Yeah.
the craziness that they went on. So that I had to cut for space reasons, but I think I'll
Yeah.
take that and develop it as a prequel later.
Yeah. I think it's so fun because nothing you write is ever wasted. Like you writing all of that wasn't even if you decided not to do anything with it, it wasn't a waste because you still fleshed out all of that backstory and you use little bits and pieces in the current book.
That's exactly
And
right.
so even though you wrote, 3 books, but you only released one, obviously, like you wrote so much and if it didn't make it, then you figured out ways that like maybe you're like, okay, it doesn't work that way. I'll go this direction. It's like, learning however many 99 ways to like not create a light bulb or whatever and then you finally figure out the one way to create a light bulb.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. No, I,
Yeah.
I totally agree with you. And I actually did end up summarizing parts of the backstory in a few different
Mhm.
places, and that helped me understand how Nari became the way she was and how
Yeah.
their dynamic developed. So you're absolutely right. It's never wasted, and it always gets put to use somehow.
Yeah, and in some way it is used. Whether the readers know it or not, you know it because you're using the knowledge of what you wrote. So,
Exactly.
yeah, that's amazing. That's
Yeah.
amazing.
Thank you.
If you could have a conversation with one of your characters, who would it be and what would you ask them?
Oh my gosh, that is such a good question. Oh, let's see. I mean, I'm fascinated by all of them, and I think I had so much fun writing the story because I felt like I was spending time with different people depending on which part of the book I was working on. And afterwards, it would be kind of like they were still with me and I was still processing the
Yeah.
experiences that we had together, which is really cool. What would I ask them? I guess for I don't really know where to begin, but I feel like I would want to talk to Nari about
Yeah.
some of her schemes that she's done in the past and just kind of
There you go.
go on that adventure with her and find out,
Yeah.
you know, I'm sure you've done thousands of amazing things. I want to hear some of those stories. Tell me
Yeah.
your entrepreneurial
That
adventures.
yeah, that's a good answer. I love that.
No, thank you.
How does your book reflect something personal from your life or experiences?
Oh man. I mean, probably just probably the entire book in some way or another reflects my experiences. One thing that I can talk about is that so I chose Omaha as the setting and I've still never been there. But I'm originally from the Midwest. I'm from Michigan. And I wanted to set the book in the Midwest because I feel that the Midwest is frequently underestimated. And I think that
Mm,
there are really fascinating people with such interesting backstories and amazing things going on. And I wanted to kind of do that for the region. I wanted to set a heist story there, do something exciting that people would never expect. And so that's how I chose Omaha.
that's fun. I feel like you put so much thought into this.
Oh, thank you.
Like I'm just saying. Okay, let's get more into your writing and publishing journey. So, how long did it take you to write your first draft?
That's a great question. And I'm working on book 3 right now, so I'm trying to like use
Ooh,
that to help guide me. How long do I want each part to take? So my first time around, was my first book, so I'm hoping future books will be much faster. But
right.
the first draft I actually wrote really quickly. I think I wrote it in 2 months, like 180
Nice.
pages of
Yeah.
just writing every single day, different amounts of time each day. And then the editing process after that took 8 months. And that's because I rewrote so many things, so many different
Yeah.
ways, so many different times, all of that volume of book because the first draft wasn't, that strong. It wasn't what it was at the end, and I had to really
Yeah.
flesh out and experiment with a lot of different things and iterate.
Yeah. Revisions are very important.
Yes, extremely important.
Yeah.
And for me, I worked with an editor, well, a couple of editors, and then I also worked with beta readers. And for me,
hmm
especially as a first time writer, I think the beta readers were extremely helpful and important at pointing out areas where the story could be improved, where
Yeah.
things were missing, where a certain emotion wasn't fully felt, the dialogue could be strengthened, whatever the case may be. So I think that I would highly recommend for writers. And yeah, I think this time around, now that I'm writing the third book, I've got more of an outline going. I've got a little bit more direction, and
hmm
I'm sure it'll evolve a ton as I'm going. But I think
Yeah.
I'm hoping to compress it a little bit this time around.
Yeah. Yeah. No rush. No rush.
Yeah, for sure.
But I mean, you also at the same time want to become more efficient, which I think is just a natural part of the process. Like you're obviously going to get better, more efficient, become faster at it.
Exactly.
So,
Because
yeah.
you also learn about your flaws that you tend to repeat in
hmm
writing, and then you learn how
Yeah.
to avoid those a little bit better, because you can spot them, you can better identify them.
Yeah.
The mistakes that I made over and over again in the first time around that, I'm more conscious of and can avoid better this time.
Yeah. 100%. I agree. I agree. What was the biggest challenge that you faced as a first time author?
Oh, that's a good question. Biggest challenge. Probably, as I mentioned, for me, I'm sure it's different for everybody, but for me, I had the issue of overwriting and just including a mind dump of all the ideas that I had and not
hmm
focusing enough on the storyline and keeping things streamlined. And so getting that help, those outsiders' perspectives was really helpful
Yeah.
for me.
Can you walk us through your path to self publishing? What hoops did you jump through? Were any of them on fire? There's always like some kind of crazy story with self-publishing because most people go in completely blind and they're like figuring out as they go. And they're like, I don't know what's happening.
Totally. Well, I think it's a vast universe as you're kind of touching on, and there's so much that you have to learn as you're getting going, but that doesn't that doesn't have to stop you. And I know that it's very intimidating as you're getting
Hmm.
started. Like, what do I do next? What do I focus on? Who can I tap into? And I think, as with any entrepreneurial venture,
Hmm.
you learn as you go, and new questions get exposed the further along that you get.
Yes.
And it all just kind of opens up to you. You meet people that introduce you to concepts that you need to know, and your knowledge grows as you go, and you learn what you need to know at each step in the
Hmm.
process. So I think
Yeah.
for me that was really beneficial. And basically from the start I knew that I didn't want to go the traditional publishing route, mainly because the financial incentive just isn't there, in terms of the royalties that you make per book. It's got to be like, I don't know, 10x higher for self-publishing. So
Yeah.
I thought, the incentives just aren't there to go with a traditional publisher. So I'd much rather figure it out on my own. And so
Yeah.
that's how I got to this step.
Yeah. And then you can control all the things.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
when you publish with a traditional publisher, they're going to ask you to do much of the same work that you'd be doing anyways, and then you're only
Hmm.
getting like a 3% cut of the pie. So
Yeah.
if you have to self-market for a book, whether it's traditionally or self-published, why not, get the rewards for your work?
I think the new landscape of traditionally publishing world is fascinating to me. I feel like it's just shifting and more people are like, it's not worth it. And
Yeah.
they're just publishing themselves.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's all going to shift. Maybe eventually some of the traditional publishing houses will have to adapt and change what they're
Yeah.
doing and give more credit back to the authors in order to stay relevant.
I'm very invested in the next like 5 or 10 years to just see how this goes
Yeah.
with the rise of, I mean, we're still seeing social media and how that's taking over and everything like that. I'm very invested. I'm very invested.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, it's very exciting for sure.
Yeah. What surprised you most about the editing and revision process?
Oh, that's a great question. I think I came into it putting too much pressure on myself to have the book be perfect and final
Yeah.
at the beginning stages. And I think it's very liberating to see throughout the editing process that the story can go in so many different directions. It can evolve.
Hmm.
You can change whatever you need to, and it's so empowering to see
Yeah.
that you can do it. You can do whatever you want with the story to make it more effective. And it can be scary because it's like, oh my gosh, I changed this huge part of the story, but now I can find the other pieces that tie into that. I can change those too. I can make the whole story better and to support that.
Hmm.
And I think that evolutionary process is actually it's so exciting. It's so
Yeah.
creative to be able to experience that and see all of the different ways that it can grow.
Yeah, it goes back to the saying where, you can edit a bad story, but you can't edit a blank page. So it's super fun to, as the author, and especially because you publish it yourself, like you can change something and then change all the other things that, domino from that one. And like there's so many possibilities and so many different ways you can take any given story. And it literally only depends on what you want your story to be. And so from that first draft, you can be like, oh, got to tweak this. And I think it's just so much fun. And
Exactly.
I'm only coming from it as a developmental editor and I can kind of like help them. I'm like, do you want it to go this direction or do you want to go to this direction? Like, it's just, I love that. 'Cause there's so many possibilities, like you said.
Exactly. And there are so many parts of the story that maybe you didn't focus on, but you could open up and expand more.
Yeah.
And that's such a beautiful thing too, to see
Mm-hmm.
how that pushes and changes the story. Something interesting that your editor or your beta reader might have noticed that they want to know more about, and that
Yeah.
grows and expands the characters and the story so much.
Yes. Yeah, I agree. If you could give your pre-writing self one piece of advice, what would it be?
I think the main piece of advice is just to get started and don't worry about the outcome. You know,
Mm-hmm.
you can edit as much as you need to. The most important thing is just to get your creative muscle going, to get those thoughts flowing and to
Yeah.
inspire yourself, and that will empower you to do absolutely anything, and you don't have to worry
Mm-hmm.
about what the writing is like right now. It will evolve, it'll grow, it'll change, but you just need to be working that muscle, and it's one of the most fulfilling things that you can do.
Beautifully said. Love it. So give us a summary of the book.
Awesome. Okay, so the first book that I wrote is The Sweetest Getaway, but it's actually the second book in the series. So I'll tell it to you in the order with The Sweetest Getaway first, since that's the
Interesting.
book that we
Okay.
talked
Yeah.
about the most. The Sweetest Getaway follows Jennifer, who is a wholesome rule follower. She's basically never broken a rule in her life. She is super quirky and creative and has all of these entrepreneurial ideas, but she's scared and she hasn't really tried any of them yet. And then on the other hand, her roommate Nari is kind of this crazy, freewheeling, wild entrepreneur who's always coming up with new ways to make money, and she's super successful at it. She never sticks with one project for very long. And she approaches Jennifer in the middle of the night and invites her to take part in this heist. And Jennifer is terrified. She can't believe what
Yeah.
she's being brought into, but somehow Nari convinces her to take part. It's against an evil corporation that Jennifer happens to know quite well. So they commit this heist, and Jennifer realizes that this is actually conducting a heist against bad guys is way more fun than she ever could have imagined. So she gets wrapped up into this crazy, adventurous, wild world with Nari, and eventually the cops get tipped on to the heist that they're preparing, the second heist. So
Yeah.
they need to,
Darn it.
I know. So they need to conduct a heist with more experienced people. So they expand their team. They plan a much more elaborate, exciting heist. And the book kind of follows all of these capers that they need to do, all of these steps in order to successfully evade the cops and pull off the second heist. So the question is
Yeah.
whether they'll be able to pull it off, or will they be, stuck
Yeah.
in jail wearing orange jumpsuits for the rest of their lives. So that is kind of that's The Sweetest Getaway, which is book two.
Mm-hmm.
And then after I wrote that, I wrote the standalone prequel called A Sweet Scheme, which follows Martha, who is one of the core heist people that they recruit. And it's kind of
Mm-hmm.
Martha's backstory. How did Martha become so awesome? What was it that she did to kind of start fighting back? So it's a story about her and her business partner and their mango mocktail business. And a competitor comes up against them, and they have to sneak into the competitor's headquarters with disguises on and try to gain some intel and fight back. And they uncover this scheme that's much bigger and
Mm-hmm.
much more involved than they thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
So it follows, them fighting back and taking back their power.
Is
So
that book out yet or no?
it is.
It is? Okay.
Yes. So
So the third one that you said you're writing now, I'm assuming, what does that follow? Which one does that follow?
that one is going to follow our four core heist women
Okay.
from book two. So
Okay.
Nari, Jennifer,
Nice.
Hannah, and Martha. And they're up against a new bad guy. They're going to conduct a new heist. And it's much more international than book two. So we've got a few
Fun.
different international settings where it's going to take place.
Nice. And is the third book the end of it, or what else do you have in the works at the moment?
I guess I'm working on book 3 right now, but I'm thinking it'll extend for a few books. I
Okay.
definitely have some more adventures cooking up for this team. I feel like they've got a lot of heists left to conduct.
Yeah. You
Um,
you have the ideas. You just
yeah,
need the time to pass so you can write them out.
exactly. They will get fleshed out. There are
Yes.
many adventures and exciting things
Yeah.
left to happen.
Nice. So, how has getting your, first two books out into the world changed your perspective on storytelling?
I think that it has shown me kind of this theme that I've been talking about, that telling stories is more accessible than I thought that it was.
Hmm.
And I also think the I've noticed the power of stories to transmit emotion, like humor and excitement and adventure, which are all things
Hmm.
that I'm working to embody in these books. And I think that if you remain motivated by those core things that you want to transmit and share with people, that's what's going to keep you going, and that's what's going to keep you excited, is offering that gift and that escape to people is something that has driven me to continue writing and has made this such a fun and exciting experience.
One last question. If you could collaborate with any author, living or dead, who would it be and why?
Oh, that's a great question. I really love like chick lit, rom-com, fun, escapist books. And I think
Hmm.
that that is kind of a natural match and a natural area to to find a collaborator. I have read a lot of Sophie Kinsella books. I think the British sense of humor,
Mm.
all of that is so fun to read and experience. But the author that I have read the most in my life, I think I've read almost all of her books, is Jhumpa Lahiri. And she's extremely different from me in terms of the pieces that we write. She's an excellent writer, but her work is much more emotional and beautifully written and just
Hmm.
extremely insightful into the human condition and how people think and what motivates them and their emotions and all of that. So I would love, I mean, I would be so honored to write something with her. But I
Yeah,
think
y'all
that
could like combine forces.
exactly, I think we're so different, but you never
Yeah,
know. Like we could always find areas of overlap. We could bring them.
100%. That would be like a match made in heaven. That would be a lot of fun.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Before we end the episode, plug away. Where can people find you? Where can they buy the book? How can they support you? All of those things, social media handles, all of that, so everyone can find you.
Yes, awesome. Okay, so The Sweetest Getaway and A Sweet Scheme are both available on Amazon. A Sweet Scheme is currently available in ebook format, but I'm working on the paperback, so that should be ready in a few weeks. And
Ooh, fun.
yes, and The Sweetest Getaway is available on ebook as well as Kindle Unlimited.
Awesome.
Hardcover was just recently released, so that is exciting. And then paperback, of course, is also available on Amazon. So check those out there. And then if you want to get the first chapter for free of The Sweetest Getaway, head over to my website, sashapreston.com/newsletter. And if you sign up for my newsletter, you'll get the first chapter for free. And then you can find me on social media. Sasha Preston Writer is the handle on most of the platforms. I am trying to get more active on social media, so
Mhm.
please check me out and send me messages. I'd love to hear from you. Any sort of, send me an email, send me a direct message on one of those
Yeah.
platforms. I'd love to hear from you and chat about whatever it is that excites you. So,
Awesome.
yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much for coming on. This was a delight.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I had such a great time talking to you.